Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited, and I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call, particularly those of you calling in for the first time and those that will be listening to the replay over the next 24 to 48 hours. We like to move quickly through these calls and bottom line the information for you. We know you're busy people. You have other things to do. We have a standard format. We spend a few minutes talking about the reinstitution and revaluation of the Iraqi dinar, which we continue to believe is the base currency for the potential reset of some of these other currencies. A few minutes talking about that program we've put in place to assist you, and then we go to a brief Q&A. So let's go ahead and get started and talk a little bit about the situation in Iraq. First, by way of disclaimer, Trusts Unlimited is not the purveyor of the dinar and these other currencies. We're not advocating either the sale or purchase of these currencies, but as rather substantial currency holders ourselves, we're sharing with you the information that we think is most relevant. And as far as we're concerned, the most relevant piece of information remains the potential window for the reinstatement of the Iraqi dinar. For several months now, it's been our belief that the most plausible date for the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar will be January of 2020. We continue to believe that's the case, and we feel that the news that we've received over the last week points even more strongly to January of 2020. So let's talk a little bit about what's going on in Iraq. First, Parliament is scheduled to vote today on the new election law. Elections are scheduled for next June 2021. Now, we do have the Al-Kazemi government, which is the sitting government at present. And Al-Kazemi has announced that he will not be running, or at this point in time, he does not believe that he will run for the office of Prime Minister. Now, that may or may not be true. You never know with the Iraqis, what they're going to do. But if Al-Kazemi does, in fact, intend on running, this is a very sort of a Machiavellian move, because by saying he won't run or he's seriously considering not running, that means Maliki and his, merry band of thugs, the pro-Iranian and corrupt officials really won't be attacking him. So basically he's taken the target off of his back, and he can just come along 30 days before the election and decide that he wants to run. But whether he runs or not, passage of the new election law once again, it's just another box that needed to get checked for the Iraqis. Now, the most important piece of information is the fact that the World Trade Organization has announced that they are in the process of fast-tracking Iraq's ascension to the World Trade Organization. And this is a very important development. Iraq right now is working very hard to prepare the file for ascension to the World Trade Organization. One of the issues that they're dealing with is the diversification of revenue having to do with expanding agriculture, agricultural industries, agricultural byproducts, livestock, and mining. They've also announced their intention, this is the Iraqi government, to improve their inter-provisional road network. And that goes from Basra all the way to Anbar, but most importantly, it goes right to the exit points and the border crossings. Now, this is important because what this means is that the Iraqi people can, in much quicker order, deliver goods and services to the border. Now, the border crossing fees will substantially increase additional revenue to the government and creates further diversification. Now, why is the World Trade Organization membership critical from our point of view? Now, in order for membership in the World Trade Organization to make sense, not only for Iraq but for any country, they need to have a viable global currency. Why? Because even if Iraq joins the World Trade Organization, without the utilization of their own currency, it means their trading partners would have to purchase goods and services from Iraq with the U.S. dollar. These countries do not want to use their U.S. dollar reserve currency for trade. They'll just deal with other countries that have a viable currency. So again, membership in the World Trade Organization doesn't really make a lot of sense unless the country in question has their own currency. So this, once again, creates a glide path for the reinstitution of the dinar. Now, the fact that the World Trade Organization is fast-tracking accession to the World Trade Organization, to me, means that, once again, we're looking at January of 2020 as the date for the reinstitution of the dinar. So there are only a couple of issues really remaining that they sort of need to work with in order to have everything in place. The first is to finally complete the agreement with Kurdistan and Erbil on several issues having to do with revenues, Section 140 of the Constitution, and evidently things are all moving in the right direction there. And second, they have to continue to neutralize the Iranian interference, and that is being accomplished as well. So, again, January 2021 looks like the most plausible date. Now, that doesn't mean the reinstitution prior to that is not possible. October would be a very good time for them to push this through. Domestically, certainly for a sitting president, the reinstitution of the dinar would be helpful to him for the very simple reason that the reinstitution of the dinar in October prior to the U.S. elections would mean anywhere from 6 to 8 million Americans are going to become overnight millionaires. And those people are not going to vote for the Green New Deal, $4 trillion in new tax increases, mountains of new regulations. They will have just made the money that they wanted and needed to make in order to fulfill the dreams of their lives, their children, and their grandchildren, and they will have no intention of handing at least half of that over to the federal government the next day. And the reinstitution in October would be perfect timing for us because it would mean that taxes would not be due until January 15th of 2021. That means we could hold the currency and allow it to appreciate if it should come in at an artificially low float. It also means that we'll have more than enough time to compel the IRS to let us know what the tax implications are, so we wouldn't need to prematurely exchange currency to pay a tax that may not be due. We would know what the tax would be, and again, it wouldn't be due until January of 2021. So for all of these reasons, it looks like January 2021 remains not only the most plausible date, but if you stand back and look at the sum total of everything, it almost looks like the only date. It dovetails with their budget. It dovetails with their entry into the World Trade Organization. And it dovetails with the fiscal year as well. So if you have not gotten your affairs in order yet, now might be a real good time to do it. Now, what do I mean by that? Most people that hold currencies are not wealthy individuals. They're hardworking Americans who, for the very first time, are going to have a very substantial amount of money to work with, and it's going to come to them literally overnight. So to that end, Trusts Unlimited has put a program in place to assist you. It's a two-phased program. Phase 1 is pre-RV. Phase 2 is post-RV. Pre-RV involves the establishment of a package of pre-RV asset protection trusts with the assignment of your currencies on paper to that trust package. Post-RV involves all the products, services, and professional referrals that you will need and that will be made available to you after the revaluation of the dinar and hopefully some of these other currencies. So let's start with phase one, which is, again, the establishment of your package of pre-RV asset protection trusts with the assignment of your currencies on paper to that trust package. There is a specific reason why Trusts Unlimited has established a package of irrevocable trusts in order to protect this future wealth. Now, there are other entities that one can establish to provide some level of asset protection. For example, individuals can establish LLCs or sub-S corporations or even family limited partnerships. But these entities can only provide limited asset protection, primarily by separating business assets from personal assets. The problem here is that these currencies are a personal asset. In addition, courts have ruled that LLCs and sub-S corporations that are owned in the majority by one person or a closely held group like a family can be pierced for civil litigation. So they're not going to provide the asset protection you're going to need and want. Some individuals have established an entity referred to as a revocable or a living or loving trust. And a revocable trust will exempt your estate from the cost and delay of probate, and in some instances can substantially reduce and even eliminate the federal estate tax. But the revocable or the living or loving trust can provide no privacy or asset protection. So they're not going to be appropriate for your needs. Some individuals have established a single irrevocable trust. And of the entities I've just described, that does provide the most asset protection. But even with the single irrevocable trust, there's an inherent flaw. And it's this: all of the assets are owned by that one single entity. So if any asset within that entity is involved in civil litigation, that would necessarily drag all of your other assets and net worth into that litigation as well. The solution to these limitations is to establish a package of irrevocable trusts, and this package must be established prior to the revaluation of these currencies for a number of reasons. So let me review with you the benefits of establishing our package of irrevocable trusts. First, by establishing this package, you will be able to protect your privacy and your anonymity. Why? Because assets within this trust package are legally sealed, meaning that the general public will have no knowledge of your net worth or your actual holdings. Second, by establishing this trust package, you will be able to successfully avoid personal IRS scrutiny. If you are holding these currencies in direct title when they revalue, the IRS computers will most likely spit out an audit. And with the potential magnitude of this revaluation relative to your prior year's earnings, you're probably looking at a full-blown 6-year audit. Such an audit would be time-consuming. It would certainly be frustrating because it's come along at the same time that these currencies have revalued, and there's many other things you'd much rather be doing. And lastly, the cost of a 6-year audit would probably be more than the cost of our asset protection trust package. On the other hand, if your pre-RV asset protection trust package is in force and you have assigned your currencies on paper to that trust package, you will have successfully transferred the taxable event of this revaluation from yourself personally to the trust. Now, this is important for 2 reasons. First, there's less than a 10% chance of an IRS audit if this taxable event were to occur within a rather sophisticated trust package such as ours. But second, and most importantly, even if the IRS determines to audit your trust, they can't do a 6-year audit. Why? Because the only taxable event within that trust will be the revaluation itself. The third reason you'd want to establish this trust package is because included in this package is a special gift subtrust that we have established. Now, philanthropic gifting can always be done on a tax-preferred basis, either pre- or post-RV. And you're going to want to postpone any philanthropic gifts until after the revaluation because you'll have more to give, and frankly, you'll need the tax write-off. But in order to avoid a substantial 40% federal gift tax, you're going to need to gift currencies to family and friends prior to their revaluation. Now, if you're gifting to individuals that you have no problem giving them the currency to exchange for themselves, or giving them the lump sum in U.S. dollars after you have negotiated the exchange, that can be accomplished outside of a trust with a standard gift letter. But if you are hesitant for any reason to give any of these individuals the post-RV lump sum, then you can gift to them through this specially designed gift subtrust. And because you're gifting through this subtrust, which is part of our package, their U.S. dollars will be protected along with yours. In addition, the language of this subtrust will allow you to gift up to a certain amount of a currency or currencies, giving you a sliding scale, meaning that irrespective of the exchange rate, you can gift to these individuals the exact U.S. dollar amount that you had in mind. And lastly, because you're gifting through this gift subtrust, you will be able to directly manage, invest, and distribute this money to these individuals as you deem appropriate. The fourth reason you'd want to establish this trust package is because it's been structured in such a way as to allow your estate to bypass the cost and delay of probate and the federal estate tax. I'll give you two quick scenarios. Scenario number one, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs an estate of $25 million. Now that estate must go through probate, a process that ordinarily can take anywhere from 6 to 18 months. But probate is a public disclosure process, meaning that the general public will be aware of the size of your estate, who your heirs are, and how much they each stand to inherit. So if anyone feels they have a legitimate claim against you, your estate, or your heirs, they can simply file that claim with a probate court. And that could tie the estate up for years, and in some cases even decades. And your heirs will have either limited access or no access at all to their respective inheritance until the probate process is completed. Then there's something called the federal estate tax. This is the tax that the federal government would assess in order for that estate to be transferred to your heirs. Under current law, approximately $10 million of that $25 million estate would bypass any federal estate tax. But the balance could be taxed as much as 65%. Now, this scenario is not only unacceptable, it's completely and totally avoidable. How? Scenario number two. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, you assign those currencies on paper to our asset protection trust package. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs that very same estate of $25 million, but this time protected in our asset protection trust package. As a result, there will be no probate. There will be no public disclosure of your estate. Your heirs will have immediate access to their respective inheritance, and the federal estate tax will be zero, saving your heirs as much as 55% of their inheritance. The fifth reason you'd want to establish this trust package is for some very specific asset protection benefits. One pre-RV, one post-RV. Pre-RV, this trust package will allow you to circumvent something called the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act. Now, what does that mean? Under our system of civil procedure, you can only be sued for what you actually own in direct title or the value of property at the time you transfer it out of title to an entity like our trust package. So let's take the previous example from before. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. You transfer the currencies to our trust. They subsequently revalue for $25 million. You begin to live a lifestyle more reflective of your newfound wealth, and a couple of years down the road, someone sees that you're living rather comfortably and decides for whatever reason that they're going to sue you. Well, this prospective plaintiff has a couple of problems. First, he or she better have a very strong case and very deep pockets, because this trust has been structured in such a way as to make it extremely expensive and extremely time-consuming to pursue civil litigation. But second, and most importantly, this is the nullification factor. Once any prospective plaintiff learns that pursuant to the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act, the only thing they could ever win by way of a civil award would be $5,000. The value of the currencies at the time you transferred them out of title and to our trust product, and none of the post-RV value of $25 million, there will be no lawsuit. This is litigation nullification. Post-RV, there's a benefit I like to refer to as limited liability stop-loss. This protects you from future bad acts after you have acquired this wealth. This protection is accomplished through a legal strategy referred to as segregation of assets. This is why we have established a package of trusts, and this is how it would work. I'll give you an example. After this revaluation, let's say, and once again, it's the same scenario where you purchase the currencies, place them in trust, they subsequently revalue for $25 million. Now that you have $25 million in trust, you decide to make some purchases. So you purchase a larger primary residence, a vacation home, perhaps a half a dozen rental properties for tax write-off and additional cash flow, a couple of cars, a boat, and let's say an RV. But as you purchase these items, you place each of them in their own separate subtrust to be managed by your master trust. Now, how does this protect you from future bad acts? I'll give you this example now. Let's say one day you're driving one of your new cars. You have an accident. The accident is clearly your fault, and tragically someone is seriously injured or even killed. Well, the family of the victim is going to want to sue you. But remember, civil suits are about monetary awards, and you don't legally own anything. So the plaintiffs would be left to sue the owner of the car that you were driving. Well, who owns that car? One of your subtrusts, of which you are merely the beneficiary. And what's in that subtrust? Merely that one car and the car insurance policy. In that scenario, the car insurance carrier will negotiate an out-of-court settlement with the victim's family. You will not be involved in those rather unpleasant negotiations. The car insurance carrier will repair or replace your car, and this is what's really important. All of your other assets and net worth are safely protected in the other subtrusts. Why? Because the other subtrusts are separate legal entities or persons having nothing whatsoever to do with the accident. So the plaintiffs, therefore, have no standing to pursue those separate legal entities, thereby preserving your wealth. So this package of trusts work very much the way a commercial barge would work, where all of the valuable cargo is stored in a series of small compartments. Why? In the event that any compartment is ever breached, the only potential loss would be the cargo in that one compartment. The cargo in the other compartments is safe and secure due to the firewalls, then the barge will never sink. Now, these benefits are lost to you if you do not establish your package of trust prior to the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. Now, there is one other benefit, and it's this. If you are, in fact, a holder of one of our pre-RV asset protection trust packages, then you will be eligible to participate in Phase 2. All of the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you. I'll just make mention of one here today. Trusts Unlimited will be sponsoring a post-RV seminar to be held in Disney World, Florida, for the exclusive benefit of our trust holders. Present at that seminar will, of course, be the staff of Trusts Unlimited to assist you with the management and funding of your trust packages, which information, incidentally, will be made available to you the moment the Dinar reinstitutes in country, but prior to the revaluation. Now, many of our clients have also expressed desire to establish scholarship funds, foundational trusts, special needs trusts, charitable remainder trusts, and even the more complicated 501c3 nonprofit and offshore trusts. The proper way to fund those entities is with the direct transfer of funds from your asset protection trust to those newly formed entities. We'll also have our tax specialists on hand as well. Since you will be managing for the first time in your life, that is most of you, a very substantial amount of money, you're going to need to understand some of the more sophisticated tax strategies to legally reduce your tax liability. We'll also have our independent fee-based wealth managers there as well. You're going to want to reposition assets for a number of reasons. First, we know statistically that 95% of all windfalls, however large and from whatever source, are lost within 3 to 5 years due to inexperience, mismanagement, and fraud. We also know that under the new G20 bank bail-in provisions, the failure of banks in the future will no longer be made whole through the taxing authority of the respective governments, but first and foremost by the confiscation of funds at those banks. So this is another reason to get a substantial amount of your money out of the banks and in working in other tangible asset areas. And lastly, the general global shift from fiat-based to Basel III compliant commodity-backed currencies in and of itself is going to create extremely volatile financial markets. And again, you're going to want a substantial amount of your net worth invested in tangible assets to avoid that volatility. Now, our trust package is initially a package of 10 trusts consisting of one master trust that will hold your assigned currencies pre-RV, financial assets like bank accounts and investment accounts post-RV, and is authorized to manage the other sub-trusts. One optional gift sub-trust, which can be converted to a standard sub-trust at any time, and 8 additional standard sub-trusts to hold physical assets like homes, cars, boats, etc. Now, this was the simplification of a rather sophisticated trust package that we've utilized in the past for our more affluent clients, a package that had an initial cost of anywhere from $6,000 to $10,000. But about a decade ago, when we decided to work with Dinarians, we understood that that price tag was going to be unaffordable for many. So by basically deferring the funding and all of the other complicated aspects of this trust, we've been able to reduce the cost to $3,000. Now, there are several ways you can pay for that. If you pay us up front, we'll discount the price further to $2,500, saving you an additional $500. If that's not possible, we even have a deferred payment arrangement. You'd make an initial payment of $525, which sum would basically offset our out-of-pocket costs just to produce and deliver your trust package to you. The balance of the $3,000 would then be paid in $100 monthly installments. We will charge no interest. The only proviso is once the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar occurs, any unpaid balance would need to be paid within 30 days. Now, with this approach, anyone that has currencies and understands the need for getting their affairs in order and their trust in place pre-RV should be in a position to afford to do so. One other suggestion, we do accept credit cards. Pay us up front with a credit card. Not only will you get the $500 discount, but the minimum payment on your card would be substantially less than $100 a month you'd pay under our deferred payment arrangement. But we will work with you in whatever method works best for you. Again, our objective is to help you get your affairs in order and your trust in place prior to the revaluation of these currencies for all of the reasons that we've stated. Now, we're going to go to the Q&A in just a moment, but before we do, and again for the benefit of our newer callers, I'd like to tell you just a little bit about Trusts Unlimited and why you should seriously consider contacting us to get our initial no-obligation informative package. Our trust package was authored by our attorney, Robert Bly. He's been a practicing attorney for over 40 years, specializing in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning. I myself hold degrees in political science, macroeconomics, and finance. I've worked in these areas for over 38 years, and I, along with my clients, were personally involved in the reinstatement of the Kuwaiti dinar in the early 90s. So between the two of us, Robert Bly and I have over 78 years' experience working precisely in these areas, and I frankly know of no firm that can make that claim. Now, Bob and I have been working together for about a decade in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning. And it has been disheartening from time to time to see people walk away from sound estate planning and trust creation because of the mistaken belief that by doing so, they have somehow lost control of their assets and their affairs. In point of fact, under our system of civil litigation, it's when you hold assets in direct title that you can lose control of them or lose them outright. And it's at precisely those times in life that you need and want control. If you've lived for any length of time, you've experienced in your own life or through friends and family things like unexpected divorce, permanent incapacitation, the onset of dementia, premature death and prolonged and complicated probate processes. Then there are investment losses, business losses, and even bankruptcies. The number 2 loss of wealth now in the aggregate, courtesy of the information age, is identity theft. But the number 1 loss of personal wealth remains confiscation through civil litigation. Anything you own in direct title can be taken from you. And the more wealth you possess, the greater the likelihood that someone will try to take it from you. So in point of fact, the only way that you can manage, protect, and control everything at all times and in all circumstances is through the establishment of a package of irrevocable trusts, and particularly if you have an asset like these currencies that you're anticipating a substantial increase in value. And we at Trust Unlimited will do everything we can to help you accomplish your personal and financial objectives, both pre- and post-RV, as we understand them. So again, I want to thank you for listening to the call. I'm about to open the Q&A in a moment. When I do, I'm going to provide you with all of our contact information. Again, I strongly suggest you contact us to get our initial no-obligation package. It does contain everything you need should you decide to apply for a pre-RV trust package, but again, that's entirely your decision. Package has a lot of information about us, about trusts, about the revaluation. You can review the package, contact us by phone or email if you have any questions. We'll be happy to assist you, and there will be no consultation fee. So I'm about to open the Q&A here. 2 quick rules on the Q&A. We take no service calls on the Q&A. This time is devoted to answering questions for individuals about our services. Our existing clients, again, can contact us by phone or email if they have a service question. And second, for obvious reasons, in order to participate in the Q&A, your name and number must be on the screen. So I'm going to open up now. And while I'm waiting for any potential questions, I'd like to give you our contact information. You can go to our website, which is trustsunlimitedllc.com. Our email address is trustsunlimitedllc@gmail.com. Our phone service is 307-274-4122. If you'd like to listen to a recent conference call playback, Or if you'd be kind enough to refer us to someone that might be interested in our services, you can either go to YouTube and then go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can go to IQD calls and then go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can simply dial the same number that you dialed for this live call this afternoon with the exception of the last number. Rather than dialing a 4, you'll dial a 3 and then use the same access code, which is 739-394-pound. If you'd like to be included on our email list, you can go to our website, go to the bottom, enter your name and email address where indicated. You should be in our email list within 24 hours. Bear in mind that we only send emails out periodically pre-RV, but after the reinstitution of the Dinar, emails may go out as often as weekly. Well, it looks like we have no callers in the queue this afternoon. That's a little unusual, but that's fine. Our next call will be scheduled for next Wednesday. Certainly, if something of a dramatic nature were to happen between now and then, we'll try to get out an emergency email and schedule an emergency conference call. But failing that, we will be back next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Thanks again for listening, and have a great week, everyone. Bye-bye.